Hello, all you reinventors. This is Leslie Jane Seymour, and I am here with Reinvent Yourself. I created this podcast all about ways to take charge of your life and move yourself to the next level, whatever that is for you. And today I am really excited because I've got an old friend of mine who I went to high school with, believe it or not, Laura Moore, who does this amazing decluttering uh, company, but she also works from the inside out. It's not just about, picking up each item and saying, does it bring you joy and folding it the proper way, even though that's great for some people. She really digs into the psychology of clutter and to the psychology of why you hold on to things, to the psychology of shame, all this stuff. You're going to love this discussion we had with her. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Laura Moore, M.Ed, principal of ClutterClarity LLC, evolved over 30 years from professional organizer, downsizing coach, and move manager to life skills mentor for women who want to learn how to stay in a position of power to enjoy a decluttered life. Laura attended the Harvard Graduate School of Education, invested in renovated rental apartments, ran Moore Communications, a marketing company for small financial, legal, medical service companies. Laura co-authored The Retail Revolution with labor economist Barry Bluestone and wrote Paper Clarity, What to Keep, Where, and When to Shred, now in its third edition. She's currently writing Live with Clutter Clarity. It's your mess, but not your fault. She is neither a perfectionist nor a minimalist. Laura resides in Metro West Boston, USA, and loves people, collaging, beauty, homes, and stuff. And as I said to you, Laura and I met in high school. She had a really messy room. She had a really messy roommate. So maybe that's where this all came from. Anyway, what you should know too is we are going to do a wonderful class with Laura called Reinvention Focus, how to reinvent your approach to decluttering the Clutter Clarity way. And that is going to be on Thursday, February 20th at 6 p.m. So I hope you will join us. And here is Laura and our discussion. Laura, so great to have you on here. I'm thrilled that you're here.
It's wonderful to see you again. Thank you
So,
for inviting me.
yeah, so let's talk about first, because this is about reinvent yourself. Let's talk about you first, and how you reinvented yourself into this kind of being a guru for organization and decluttering. So give us a little bit about your history. Where did you grow up? What did you start out doing? And how'd you end up doing this?
I know it's very bizarre. All my childhood friends can't believe I do this because I can be very messy and I have to pick up after myself. In fact, that's one of the
Redemption.
redemption. But the difference between me and the between me and the women I work with is I don't get upset about it. So the real question is, how can you do this work without being upset or without upsetting yourself? So the in the sense of reinventing myself, I kind of, this business called professional organizing sort of came into our sphere of consciousness back in the 80s when I was actually changing my business or looking for something to change my business from marketing to small companies, healthcare, legal, and financial companies, to something more personal. And I love people, I love homes, I love architecture, I love beauty. And I said, okay, I'll try this. And, in the beginning, it was really like that. And somehow I have an innate sense of order, but I didn't know what I was doing. I made it up along the way. And so it started working in people's homes, and it was all about organizing the perfect closet, etc. And then it evolved into Move Manager, where I was helping people make these large transitions into downsizing and moving into a new home. And then over talking to people for women for 30 years, I was going, how is it possible that these women who are reasonably intelligent and capable and productive in their personal life and professional life, what happened that you open the door of your closets and you just want to close it and go watch Netflix? Like, what is the emotional upset? And how is it that so many competent women are so stuck with the stuff in their homes? And so then it became more about a life coach for women. and then it became decluttering on Zoom through because of COVID, and which was where I needed to go. But I love going into people's homes. I even resisted it a little bit. But then I learned that the groups are what's the magic is in the group, much more than one-on-one working in people's homes, which is wonderful, but they become dependent on me. So we'll clear it up, organize it,
Oh
and then
no, and then it's
go back.
back.
And then I
Oh
need to go
no.
back because I wasn't teaching at that point how to do it yourself. I was just
Oh,
doing it with them.
interesting. Interesting.
So in the group, they become interdependent with others in the group so that we can buoy them up or, answer their questions and take care of each other. And so we sort of became dependent. And in America, we're taught to be so independent. This is a lot of shame and embarrassment to even work with somebody like me.
Oh,
So the
interesting.
whole tone is how can I help people be brave enough to be supported? And that led me to the groups in 2020.
And so do you do mostly group now, or do you do individual and group? How does
I
your
do
company work?
individual and group. It started off as a class, a typical, class on decluttering, but that turned out to be frustrating because decluttering is emotionally and logistically complex.
Right.
So that became the group, and it's now ongoing, and people can enter the group anytime for 4 to 48 weeks. So,
Wow.
so they
Incredible.
choose the affordability, they choose the length of
Right.
time, they can leave
Right.
and come and go. And so, to answer your question, I do still work in homes, but very rarely. So it's one-on-one personal coaching and the group coaching, both on Zoom typically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more than enough. That keeps me busy.
So what are the main issues that you come up across as you say, is it kind of the hidden self? Is it that we put on this, is this the Instagram life? Our houses are the Instagram life, and then when you open the closet door, there's the real disorganized, confused person inside, or how do you see it?
Well, both. Actually, it's interesting as you mentioned Instagram and the internet. Instead of comparing ourselves to just our friends and our neighbors, we're comparing ourselves to celebrities.
Yeah, who have
Perfection.
people who come in and do this for them every day,
Right.
right?
They don't have to do it. And there's the shame factors, like if I was like them, or if I had more money, or if I was this and that, or if I didn't have the mother I grew up with, or if I had a different house. It becomes very victim oriented. And what really needs to happen is that regardless of your current circumstances, you need to respect where you are in order to get where you need to be. But there's the internet, there's the Instagram, there's the culture that breeds accumulation, even rewards it. There's the psychology of I have a lot, I am a lot. And then
Oh, that's
you
interesting.
throw FOMO in that fear of missing out. Well, I can't go to, you know, I can't travel for 3 weeks, so I'll go out and eat for 3 weeks, or, people, or I go buy stuff to feel better.
Right. We are a consumer society that we've been taught consuming is going to make you feel better, and we know it's not.
Right. But so the whole work is how to manage ourselves so that we can actually let go of an old habit, be supported and attached to ourselves to a new habit that creates the life that we want now or the life that we want to create. So that takes attention and it takes time. It takes on average 66 days to change a habit.
Mhm.
And when it comes to clutter, it can take 66 days to go, oh my God, am I really going to do this?
Wow.
And start
About,
decluttering.
let's talk about shame since I think it's such an important topic overall. I think shame guides us through much of what we do.
Or
When
don't do. Yeah.
when did it become shameful to have a messy, cluttered house or a
Oh,
messy?
I think it's always been shameful because
Oh,
women's identity is attached to the condition of the home.
ah,
Okay, and you usually can find the first floor is usually in reasonable order. It's the second
oh,
floor and the attic.
interesting.
The
Okay.
public rooms are usually organized enough to invite people in.
Oh, how interesting.
Yes. So, I've been in perfectly organized homes, but the woman is upset with the clutter in the basement.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm one of those. Yes.
And then underneath the basement is all this issue and fear about her child. Now her adult daughter is now married, and all the married gifts are in her house because her house is big enough. But, and the child, the adult child, doesn't have enough money to buy a big enough house for all the stuff. So really, under all the anxiety is, will my daughter have the future that I had?
Ah, Laura,
Yeah.
you're like, so you're really digging into the psychology of this. That's incredible.
Well, they get it, well, that's what makes it enjoyable is the
Right,
people.
right.
And so, but it's not like I don't work with hoarders. That
That's
really
a psycho.
emotionally needs
Yeah,
professional help.
yeah,
Now you
yeah.
can have a
It's
lot
an
of stuff in
addiction.
your
It's an
house though.
addiction. Yeah,
Right. Well, they don't want to work with somebody like me. But
right.
there's a lot of people who are overstuffed and they think they're hoarders and they're not.
What's
They're
the difference,
excessive
Laura?
accumulators.
What's the difference between an accumulator and a hoarder? How can you tell?
Well, that's pretty complex, but the level of resistance.
Oh,
Okay, so you can have a lot of stuff in your house, and somebody said the other day, I hoard quotes. I'm a hoarder. And I
quote?
went,
Like
quotes.
writing
She
down
collects
quotes?
quotes because she was a calligrapher.
Oh,
So
okay,
she would collect, she had bags and bags and bags or
okay.
boxes of quotes, but she
Wow.
identified herself as a hoarder. And I
Oh,
said, oh,
interesting.
let's back up, sweetie pie.
Oh, interesting.
So she excessively collected what she loved, but she was emotionally and physically and culturally stable enough to understand and then act on letting go without too much resistance. So when it's a real hoarder, there's five different levels. I don't work with advanced. What you see on TV, for example, is pure voyeurism,
Yes.
and it's very misleading. But my
It,
clients would go, well, at least I'm not as bad as them.
right, exactly. So what do you see as what are the big barriers to the average person, not a real hoarder? Again, it's like we say we
Right.
have OCD. We
You-
really don't. OCD is really toxic and it's chemical and all this stuff. But, there's deep collectors, junk collectors, but they're not hoarders. So in the normal range, what are the basic issues there? Is it that they have no time? Is it that they just haven't dedicated the time? And what are they trying to get to that you can help them get there? Is it clarity? I mean, we know there's the psychology of in a cleaner space, you can think
feel
better,
that.
you can think more. It goes into your brain.
Right.
It's a brain thing, isn't it?
Well, yes, yes, very much so. It's all connected.
Right.
So the solution isn't learning how to declutter. The solution is how to take good care of yourself while you're decluttering, how to prevent the overwhelm, how to prevent the procrastination, how to prevent the shame, how to keep on showing up, how to persevere with patience, whether you're decluttering or doing the dishes. So the Clutter Clarity way is applicable to whatever you happen to be doing in your life. I just stay in the world of decluttering typically. So what gets in the way is women tend to, there's lots of things that get in the way, but instead of focusing on the stuff, you focus on the self, like what is it that's getting in the way? And it's usually women take this work very personally. Like, and the culture has taught us that clutter is bad. So women morph and they go, I'm bad. And they look at
Uh-huh.
the tiles in their bedroom or the kitchen or wherever, and they go, there's the evidence. There's the
Oh,
proof.
wow, love. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
And if you've had a really bossy mother or something, or you had a bossy boss, or you have a bossy husband, you're not used to owning your authority to show up and take care of something without permission. So
Wow.
it gets very complicated to enter this work as the executive of the household instead of the indentured servant. Okay. And
Gee.
that's where we go. That's the Clutter Clarity way that teaches you self-management skills so you become confident, capable with the clarity of a way where you're taking good care of yourself. So you don't have to worry about the overwhelm. You actually know how to prevent it.
So, what kind of resistance do you see? Do you see resistance? Do you see people who come in and go, it's not about me. I just want to clean up the room? Like, Do you see people who just don't get the bridge into the psychology, or by the time they show up to you, are they've begun to understand that it's not just Marie Kondo looking at every piece and saying, "Does it bring you joy?"
Right, the stuff's still bringing you joy. I want you to have an enjoyable experience, whether you're picking up your socks or not. So the resistance really taking it too personally, like they've identified with the clutter, and that's evidence that they're wrong. There's resistance and time management. So the Clutter Clarity Way actually has three prefaces, sort of prerequisite skills: emotional management skills, time management skills, and relationship management skills. That's the stuff, emotions, relations, and time, that get in the way.
Hmm.
And the beautiful thing in the group is that they've dedicated themselves to show up every week. It's a weekly group for an hour and 15 minutes. And also in the forum, they post their progress or their setbacks in the forum. So we get to have your back every single day of the week. Somebody's paying attention and caring and sharing with you. So it can take weeks for people to come around and go, I don't have time to, oh, I'm going to make time for my priorities, one of which is now the decluttering.
So, what about people with ADHD or ADD? How are they affected? I had a friend who was very successful agent, for celebrities, who discovered in her 70s through a Covey Club event that she had adult ADHD, and that what explained her inability. She had this chaotic, she could never be organized on the job. And like looking back, she says it's amazing. I mean, she was really successful, even though
Even despite that, right?
right, despite that. So like how does that work? Because so many more people are being diagnosed now with ADHD.
It's a legitimate diagnosis. And in the culture that we live right now, it makes perfect sense. The idea is to show up regardless of your challenges. So I work with people personally. You can work with me personally. I'll customize everything to your unique circumstances. But whether you have ADHD or whether you're depressed or whether you're a victim of violence or whether you really want to leave your husband or whether, it's really, you need to pick up your stuff and figure out how to do it. So instead of explain, justify, and defend yourself, how are you going to show up and make it work? Just like the agent that you were talking about made it work despite her challenges, which she didn't even know what the explanation was, and she was still successful. So the Clutter Clarity Way is, you move around the obstacles. You learn how to navigate around the obstacles instead of going, there's something wrong with me. I
Mm.
can't do this. Now, in all fairness, you do need a young man or a woman with muscles in a truck at home often to help you. So you learn to delegate, which is very important, and not be the schlepper, but be the executive.
Yeah,
So
what
does
are the
that answer your question?
yeah, yeah. What are the most common mistakes that and is it mostly women? Do you work with men at all? Is it only women?
No, over 30 years, I've been doing this a long time. Over 30 years, I get maybe one, two phone calls from men a year.
Wow.
So
Why
this
is that?
Well,
Explain.
there's a lot of different reasons, but it's one that it's considered women's work, the identity of the home. Husbands or men don't, they just they'll figure it out themselves. They don't want another woman to be telling them what to do.
Oh, I see, I
Okay.
see.
And by the way, I don't tell people what to do. I give them guidelines. And the process is to own your authority. So you're the expert in your life. I'm the expert in what I do. And together we figure it out. So everything is figure outable together. What works for one person won't work with another. But men, they're not particularly interested in this. And women are taking this is the irony, Leslie, that women in their traditional roles as homemakers and caregivers are actually taking the lead one house at a time, cleaning up this mess that's generations old now.
Hmm.
But they don't, to understand that they're leading the family out of the way. Now, to do that, you need negotiation skills instead of nagging. To
Mm,
do that, you need to make time for this priority of decluttering. And how do you do that if you have children and parents to take care of?
mm.
Okay. And emotionally, then the overwhelm and the exhaustion. And women are personally, generally very pissed off when they first call me. They're upset. They're upset with themselves because it's not lack of effort. They've
Aha.
seen all the videos, they've read all the books. Just this week, somebody decluttered a whole shelf of books on organizing, generations of organizing books. They've tried, they've tried. And then they say, well, it must be me. And I know, no, sweetie pie, come, let's be together and I'll teach you another way. It's more about how to take care of yourself. It's not about there's something wrong with you.
So interesting how we internalize that. I find that
We
really interesting.
It's very fascinating work. The belief systems that are, old now, like saving things just in case you might need them in the
Right,
future. Okay,
right,
that was something that was learned in the Depression.
right.
Generations passed down. The Depression is 100 years ago now,
Wow.
okay, but is still running our lives. So it's so liberating, whether you have ADHD or whether you're depressed or whether you're just stuck, to go, oh, if I shift my thinking here, I can think better, feel better, do better. And that's why so much of it is in what are the beliefs that you're holding that's driving you now? And a little shift can make a huge difference and open it up. But it's really the community that surprised me, the decluttering in the group, because I thought, one-on-one in homes was everyone thinks is sort of the icing on the cake, but it's the group when they start caring for each other. I went,
Hmm.
oh my God, it's not about the clutter clarity way. It's not about me and what I know. It's
Hmm.
not even about individuals. It's they start caring about each other. And everything is easier when you have a team of support, dependable, that has your back. And that's the spirit of the group.
Do you see a differentiation between younger people and older people? I mean, because you're right, our generation, sort of the tail end of the baby boom, did grow up. Our parents went through the depression and they did have to keep everything. Just
Right.
in case you keep the
They
broken
did.
thing that you
Right.
might have to fix. I never thought of it that way, but I think you're right. You
Yeah,
keep it
it's
down in
very
the basement just in case, right?
right. It was very appropriate during the Depression,
Right,
but it's not necessarily appropriate in our lives right now,
right.
in this era or in this decade. And so that the whole idea is instead of enduring, you evolve. You evolve to what is true for you now, and decluttering becomes a way of taking good care of yourself and preparing for the future, the unpredictable future for sure, but you can have a soft landing if you take care of your present home. So, but the group made it affordable and made it, um, oh, I see myself in that person.
Yeah, it's always helpful to know you're
I'm
not
not the only
alone. You're not
one.
weird. You're not weird.
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
strange. Talk
Right,
talk a little bit about, I think there's a shift going on between, I think there's a lot of people in our generation who, when their parents die, they've been left to declutter. The parent never did this.
right,
So they're one of the awful parts of dealing with the parent's death is actually dealing with all the clutter and the stuff and what to do with it, and it's overwhelming and it's shameful and all that. Are you seeing, because we're hearing from the younger generations, um, we don't want your stuff. We don't want the antiques. We don't
right.
want the old things. They have a very different mindset. Are you seeing that in your
Oh
group?
yeah, very different culture that they're living in. And so it's our job to actually respect that it's a different culture and not to take it personally. It's hard on parents who spent a lot of money for this stuff, and it was the grandparents. And what they do is like they're rejecting the furniture, they're not rejecting you. And so the whole idea is to separate the story from the object and let it be and give it to somebody who really would love this stuff. But the dialogue in the group fleshes this out, and we solve individual questions where, again, they're so relieved to know that they're not the only parent who has who has a child who doesn't, they doesn't respect my stuff. They don't want my stuff.
So they feel personally aggrieved, but when they
They feel
realize it's
personally
generational,
rejected.
rejected. Wow.
Their hard work,
Right.
that earned this house.
Right.
And like there's a woman I'm working in France who,
Oh, and the French are major about that. They pass down linens. That's one
uh,
of the big things to do, right? Is to pass down a
I,
linen.
well, she happens to be American, but she has lived in France for decades, and um, she is struggling because she doesn't have children to pass it down, and they don't have as much infrastructure as Americans do about donations. So
Oh,
one
oh.
of the things that's so interesting is that we never declutter by ourselves. It's a communal event. You can take the lead, but you have your community, you have your municipal, you have your donation centers, you have your attorneys, you have move managers, you have trucks and dumps and recycling centers. The idea of taking it all on ourselves is the burden. It's all up to me and having to do it all myself. And that's why the group really became so refreshing. In fact, I have a quote from that woman in France. Can I
Yeah, yeah,
read?
yeah. That's great. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, it said a little note that she gave me. She's
Uh-huh.
renewing for another, I don't know, 24 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, it isn't easy for me to financially write this check, but I have months, if not years, of decluttering ahead of me. And I found it unusually helpful to work with you and participate with the women in this group. And she's way over there, 3,000 miles away. And she's gone from drudgery to discovery, discovering what adds value to your present life around now, this year. And she's just enjoying it so much, talking to the women in the group on the forum, too, in between, not just in the Wednesday nights.
How do you deal with regret? Because I think a lot of, I mean, when I had to clean out my house up north, we've been there 24 years. I had every article I'd ever written. I had a whole room full of all the magazines, hundreds of magazines. And we have no attics here, no basements. We had a giant basement, practically the size of the house up in the big, that's what you had. So I literally, first I thought I was going to photograph all this stuff. I got bored of that in 2 seconds. I just literally just threw everything out. And there are moments when I look back and I think, oh, should I have done that? There is that fear of regret. 99% of the time, I feel immediately when I did that and when I moved down here and got rid of all that stuff, the lightness, I
Yeah,
felt lighter. I felt like, even though I kept saying to myself, what if I ever need to look back at an article I wrote for Vogue in the 80s? I was like, so what? You've been holding that for 20 years. You haven't looked back at it yet. Why do you
I
need to now?
know.
Like, you know,
And
like,
our lives are demanding so much of us in the present that
right.
very rarely do we go back. Now, there's different ways to approach that, actually. You can pack it all up and give it to your children to go through later. Or you can actually hire somebody to put it all on computer and do the scanning for you.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Okay. Or you can let it go, especially if you're reinventing yourself, Leslie.
Oh yeah, I was reinventing. I
Okay. You
threw it
were.
all away.
There's a point where you got to let go of that psychically
Yeah.
and it's amazing when you open up your physical and emotional and psychic space. It's almost as if the universe says, Yippee, I'm going to come and support you, and they guide you to your future. So if
Hmm.
we're, you know, chained to our past, it's so
Oh,
much hard to
interesting.
go into your future, literally,
Interesting.
physically and emotionally and spiritually.
It's interesting because when I was packing up, I was in the fashion business. I had thousands of articles of clothing I bought.
Imagine.
I mean, Chanel, I mean, I can't even tell you. Just, I mean, I had three or four different closets packed with samples. And, because in my business, every day you had to wear some of those things. And
Exactly.
when I was finally giving them up, I had bags and bags and bags. I sold a lot, but I had bags and bags in the front hall. And my husband, who's very funny, came in and he said, I'm getting a little nervous that I'm going to end up in one of those at one point. And I'm like, if you're not careful.
Be careful. Exactly.
There's a possibility.
Don't get rid of me.
Right, exactly, which is funny.
Well, there's lots of ways to handle that kind of history.
Yes,
Um,
it's your
but
history. That's what you're not wanting to
I,
get rid of.
so that's what needs to be respected. When you're going through your clutter, you need to do this work with respect. It's not just a matter of getting rid of our crap. It's
Right,
about choosing what really added value to my life in the past, and there is a letting go.
right.
Okay, so grief versus regret. One of the biggest mistakes you asked me earlier is that people, women, do too much, too fast, too hard, and too short of time.
Oh, is that right? So people
Right.
do
And that
want to,
causes, if you keep on pounding at it like that, first of
uh-huh,
all, it creates the very resistance of coming
uh-huh,
back and taking care of it,
uh-huh.
but it causes mistakes that you regret forever.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so if the clutter clarity way is really a methodical decision-making process where you do need to show up and you may break a sweat, but you don't need to suffer. So we take the pain out of it. But we actually want to teach you how to pace yourself instead of push too hard, which
Right.
can cause PTSD.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so you need to break that cycle.
So, Laura, we're at the end here. Where
I
can
know.
people find you and where can they find what you do?
You can go to clutterclarity.com, the website. Okay, and there's personal coaching there and group coaching. And you can fill out a form, and it would be wonderful. Myself or my assistant, Rachel, will get back to you. And so often we start with just one personal coaching session. So we find out what is a good fit for you. And let's see, once a month or so, we have a free decluttering or a free intro to the Clutter Clarity Way. And the
Okay.
next one is coming up February 3rd. So you can sign
Okay.
up for that too.
Good. And then we also have a Covey class that you're going to
Of
do,
course, that's right.
which is February 20th at 6 p.m. The Clutter Clarity Way. It's your mess, but not your fault.
That's
So
the
that,
big thing, right? I was driving down 128 and I said, "Oh my God, it's their mess, but it's not your fault."
right.
So it's really understand that as women, we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And
Yes.
if you can unlearn old habits and create new ones and be willing to be supported, you can turn this decluttering work into from drudgery to discovery. And
Awesome.
you discover so much about yourself, but also how you can make a contribution back to your community. So letting go isn't like I have to get rid of something. This is very important. You're actually recycling or giving it back to the community. And
That's
that's
what
when
I
it
said. Yeah.
feels good. It
Yeah.
feels good to let go.
I said, let someone else love this pair of shoes the way I did.
That's right. And you can't control that. You let it go,
Right.
let somebody else pick it up.
Right.
So
Exactly.
being in control.
Laura, wonderful as always. Can't wait to see you at the
Thank you.
class.
It'd
And
be,
I really appreciate knowing you and I appreciate all you do. And I just love the depth of what you do. And I think it's fantastic.
thank
So
you.
thank you.
I'm so welcome. I mean, I'm so grateful. The opportunity to talk to you again. And
Good.
thank you for your support. And I look forward to February. It's
Awesome.
great.
So thank you all for joining us for the podcast. I hope it was helpful to you. If it was, please give us a review and some stars. That helps the podcast get seen by people who need to see it. I hope that you picked up some good tips that are useful to you. And I hope you will realize that you're not alone if you're having trouble dealing with clutter. And you're probably not a hoarder. That is a very unusual thing out there. Anyway, please enjoy it. If you're looking to reinvent yourself, please go over to the Covey Club website and put in the word reinvention in the little spyglass, and you will find thousands and thousands and thousands of articles and guides and checklists and all that for you that you can then take with you into your reinvention. So I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope to see you next time as well. So take care.